magic of prosperity is mine to command. And I create wealth with every thought and intention. My name is Harmony Bomb 369, and welcome to the Magic Journal 111. A piece of your brain the size of a grain of sand would contain 100,000 neurons, 2 million axons, and 1 billion synapses, all talking to each other. Given these figures, it's been calculated that the number of possible brain states, the number of permutations and combinations of activity that are theoretically possible exceeds the number of elementary particles in the universe. Given this complexity, how do we begin to understand the functions of the brain? V.S. Ramachandran, Phantoms of the Brain. We started this journey with the triangle of money, time, health to define what magic is and who is privy to use it. You are magic, and it's your birthright as an evolved starseed to utilize it. With spell number 1, chanting, and the universal key, as above, so below. We moved into part 2, the triangle of conscious, preconscious, and subliminal. You are power, and the magnitude of your power comes with developing your level of consciousness and awareness. With spell number 2, biofeedback, part 3, the triangle of the soul, mind, and body. 369, numerology. The cosmos is power, and you are a conduit. You are water, you are fire, you are earth, you are air, and you are spirit. With spell number 3, journaling. Now let's talk about the triangle of the predicting machine. The triangle of what I see, what I expect to see, and what happens next. With spell number 4 being visualization. The human brain is a prediction machine, built more for survival than accuracy. This triangle is one of the most mind-blowing aspects to think about. Check out this message I received.
Hi H-Bomb, I am really looking forward to your discussion featuring the triangle of who is in control. I am curious, am I the same person or consciousness or awareness when I woke up this morning as who I am right now? Will I be the same person or consciousness or awareness when I go to bed tonight? How does my perception alter my identity throughout the day? Looking forward to your answer, thanks.
Right on, Star Child. The triangle of what I see, what I expect to see, and what happens next illustrates how the brain constantly navigates between perception, expectation, and action. Our brains are continuously predicting what will happen next, and we adjust our behavior based on whether those predictions are accurate. When they aren't, we learn from the error, adapting for future responses. This model is a fundamental aspect of human cognition, learning, and interaction with the world around us. Unintentional blindness, aka unintentional blindness, is a psychological phenomena where you fail to notice something in your visual field because your attention is focused elsewhere. This means that even though something might be directly in front of you, you will be unaware of it due to a lack of attention. It's a form of cognitive limitation. This is how our attention works. Attention acts as a filter, impacted by distractions on our perception and the understanding of the world around us, allowing only certain information to reach conscious awareness. The question of how much life we assume versus what is reality, all in the presence of distractions, is fascinating. Experts argue that we're only aware about 1% to 5% of the sensory information we encounter in real time. Most of the sensory data gets filtered out automatically, leaving us with a limited, constructed version of reality. 1, what I see, my perception. This aspect represents the raw sensory input that your brain receives from the external world via your 5 husbands, your senses, particularly through your eyes. Perception is the first step in the brain's processing cycle, where you take in information from the environment. Sensory information. Light enters your eyes and is transformed into electrical signals, which are processed in the visual cortex at the back of your brain. The visual cortex decodes features like color, shape, movement, and depth. The brain's interpretation, what you see, is not just the raw input. Your brain also applies previous knowledge, memories, and context to interpret the sensory information. It's fascinating how much of what we see is actually constructed by the brain. We don't see everything we think we do. In fact, a large portion of our visual experience is filled in by the brain. Our eyes take in raw visual data from the world, but our brain does most of the work in creating the image we experience. The light enters our eye. It's converted into electrical signals that are sent to the brain. However, these signals only give raw data like shapes, colors, and movement. The brain processes and interprets this information, adding meaning, context, and memory, which completes the image we see. This processing is heavily influenced by past experiences and expectations, so we often perceive things that aren't literally there. Filling in the gaps when we're not focusing directly on something, like the edges of our vision, our brain doesn't bother processing every tiny detail. It fills in. It fills in information based on context, expectations, and past knowledge, memories, which sometimes leads to optical illusions or misconceptions. So while we think we're seeing everything clearly, what we experience is a combination of actual sensory input and a lot of brain construction. Whoa! Some studies suggest that we are only truly aware of about 1% of the total information our eyes receive. Most of what we see is created in our mind, based on both raw data and our brain's predictions. Pretty wild, right? For example, if you're walking in a park and you see a moving object, your brain might interpret it as a person, a dog, or a car based on your past experiences and expectations. Brain areas that are involved are the occipital lobe, your visual processing, the parietal lobe, your spatial awareness, and your temporal lobe, the recognition and memory. They all work together to help you make sense of what you see. Point 2. What I expect to see. Expectation, prediction. The brain just doesn't passively interpret sensory data. It actively anticipates what is likely to happen next. Expectations are based on previous experiences, knowledge, and patterns you've learned over time. The brain is constantly predicting what we will see based on what we've seen before. It uses this prediction to fill in the gaps in real time, making the experience feel more fluid and less jarring. This is why you might not notice something change right in front of you if it's something unexpected, like that famous invisible gorilla experiment where people fail to see the person in the gorilla costume suit because they're too focused on counting the basketball passes. Top-down processing. Your brain uses a form of top-down processing. We'll go into detail about this in part 7 of the Introduction to Magic, so make sure you hit subscribe, where your expectations influence what you perceive. Essentially, the brain fills in the gaps in the sensory data based on past experiences, cultural context, and what you expect to encounter. For instance, if you're walking toward a door you've seen many times and you expect it to open when you touch the handle. Predictive coding. The brain constantly makes predictions about what will happen next based on your experiences and ongoing sensory input. This predictive mechanism is central to how we understand the world and how our brain prepares for potential outcomes. Expectation is tied to prediction. Your brain is predicting outcomes based on patterns it has learned. When you expect to see something familiar, like a red apple on a table, your brain anticipates what the apple will look like based on past experiences. The shade, based on past experiences. This allows us to make sense of the world quickly, but it can also lead to confirmation bias, where you tend to notice information that confirms with your perceptions and ignore information that contradicts them. Misaligned assumptions, because we often don't actively perceive what's happening in front of us. Our assumptions can be vastly different from what's actually occurring. Some common cognitive biases and errors are omission biases. We tend to ignore or delete information that doesn't fit with our current frame of reference. If you're distracted by your phone during a meeting, for example, you might omit details that could be crucial to your understanding of a project. Your brain skips over information that you assume is irrelevant. Anchoring bias. Like someone's opinion or a statistic, your brain may anchor that information and use it as the basis for all future judgments. When distracted, this anchoring effect becomes stronger because you're less likely to seek out new, more relevant data. In situations where assumptions aren't checked or adjusted, you may end up acting on outdated or incorrect information. You might make an incorrect decision about a work project because you're assuming you have the full context, but your distracted state caused you to miss crucial updates or changes. To better understand the impact of distractions, let's look at a few more examples of how much of our day is shaped by assumptions rather than conscious present moment awareness. Everyday situations, social interactions. We often assume we know how people are feeling based on facial expressions or a tone of voice. But when we're distracted or in a rush, we might miss key signals. Workplace decisions. In a busy multitasking work environment, we might make snap judgments about a project or a client based on incomplete information. For instance, if you quickly scan an email while working on something else, you may assume you understand key points but miss nuances or context. Technology and media consumption. In the digital age, we are constantly distracted by notifications and messages or news updates. Our minds get trained to quickly assess and assume the importance of these distractions without fully engaging with the context. Often this can lead to misinterpretation of information. For example, you might fully understand a news story after reading the headline, but the reality of the situation might be far more complex than we realize. Statistics on distraction and misperception. Research from cognitive science suggests that multitasking or task switching can reduce productivity and focus by as much as 40%. In essence, if we're distracted by constant switching between tasks, we're actually missing out on key parts of reality, creating more room for assumptions and misunderstandings. Brain areas involved. Areas such as the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, prediction, and higher order thinking. And the hippocampus, which stores memories and context. And together, they help form these expectations. Your motor cortex also plays a role in anticipating actions and responses. Point 3, what happens next? Action, outcome. This part of the triangle is the result of what happens when the brain puts its expectations and perceptions into action. It's where the brain tests its predictions against what actually happens in the world, comparing expectations with reality. After the brain makes its prediction, it compares the outcome to the expectation and updates. If the two match, the door opens as expected, there is little cognitive suppress and everything feels smooth and efficient. However, if the outcome differs, the door doesn't open, the brain experiences a discrepancy and has to adjust its predictions. Error detection and learning. When there's a mismatch between expectation and reality, the brain signals that an update is needed. This is important for learning. It allows the brain to adjust its models of the world. The dopamine system plays a key role in error detection and learning from feedback. Brain areas involved, the anterior cingulate cortex is involved in detecting discrepancies or conflicts between expectation and reality, signaling when something is off and prompting a corrective action. The basal ganglia are also involved in motor action and decision making when the brain carries out responses to stimuli. Emotional regulation. Emotional responses, our emotions, often emerge when expectations are violated. For example, if you expect a pleasant experience, a friendly greeting at a cafe, and instead experience discomfort or confusion, it can lead to stress, frustration, or surprise. The brain processes these emotions to inform future actions. Learning and adaptation. The brain learns through a process of mismatches between expectation and reality. It is constantly evolving. If something unexpected happens, example, the door doesn't open when you expect it to, the brain updates its model of the world to reflect this new experience. And then the future predictions become more accurate. When we're distracted, the brain has to juggle multiple things at once, which increases our cognitive load, essentially the mental effort required to process information. Legs. High cognitive load reduces our capacity to process new, complex, or unexpected information. This is why when you're multitasking, you're not as effective at noticing things in your environment or processing details in a conversation. The brain constantly makes predictions to reduce cognitive load. When expectations are met, it can process information more efficiently. However, when expectations are violated, it requires more cognitive resources to process and adjust. Check out a piece of this article, Redundancy, Reduction, and Pattern Recognition by Richard Dawkins, evolutionary biologist, Oxford, author, The Magic of Reality. The folklore of neurobiology includes a mythical grandmother neuron, which fires only when a particular image, the face of Jerry Letvin's grandmother, falls on the retina. Letvin was a distinguished American neurobiologist who worked on the frog retina. The point is that Letvin's grandmother is only one of countless images that a brain is capable of recognizing. If there were a specific neuron for everything we can recognize, not just Letvin's grandmother, but lots of other faces, objects, letters of the alphabet, flowers, each one seen from many angles and distances, we would have a combinatorial explosion. If sensory recognition worked on the grandmother principle, the number of specific recognition neurons for all possible combinations of nerve impulses would exceed the number of atoms in the universe. Independently, Fred Atnaf had calculated the volume of the brain would have to be measured in cubic light years. Barlow and Atnaf independently proposed redundancy reduction as the answer. Claude Shannon, inventor of information theory, coined redundancy as a kind of inverse of information. Wow! I love when space is used as an analogy for the human brain. The human brain and space both embody concepts of vastness, mystery, and potential, just as the universe is full of endless discovery, unknowns, and interconnected systems. The brain is full of infinite possibilities for learning, adapting, and creating. Both are dynamic, constantly evolving, and deeply mysterious, but much of their true nature still left to be explored. By using space as an analogy, we recognize the brain, like the universe, holds limitless potential, waiting for us to explore, understand, and unlock. Genetic predispositions and evolutionary programming influence how we perceive and respond to the world. Primitive instinct instructions refers to the innate biological behaviors or instincts that are hardwired into our DNA, behaviors that have evolved over time to ensure survival, reproduction, and the continuation of the species. These behaviors are largely governed by our biology and in humans often manifest in unconscious urges, reflexes, or tendencies. DNA, the blueprint of life, encodes instructions for building and maintaining the body, including the instincts that guide much of our behavior. When we talk about how nature, DNA, and nurture, environmental factors, influence behavior, we are addressing a central debate in psychology, biology, and sociology. To what extent is who we are and how we behave determined by our genetic makeup, nature, versus the influence of our environment, our upbringing, our culture, and personal experiences, nurture? DNA provides the biological blueprint for how we process information, anticipate future events, and react to them. This hardwiring is why humans tend to have predictable patterns of behavior and perception that will often align with survival instincts, emotional responses, and learned experiences. But while our genetic predispositions, let's take this caller. Hello.
Yo, so what is our sense of self?
Our memories ground our sense of self, but our memories are subject to change and are not hardwired. Memory is not a perfect recording. Research has shown that our memories are reconstructed, not replayed. Every time we recall a memory, we don't just access it in its original form. We reconstruct it using bits of information available in the brain at that moment. The process is influenced by our current emotions, beliefs, and even external suggestions. Suggestive language can implant false memories or alter the details of an event. Repetition plays a big role in strengthening memories. However, each time we rehearse a memory, Whether it's through conversation, reflection, or simply thinking about it, we have the potential to reorganize or reshape it. The malleability of memory is not necessarily a flaw. It's actually part of the brain's adaptive nature. Memory isn't just about recalling facts. It's about making sense of the past to help us function in the present and the future. Past, present, and future. As we learn and grow, our memories may evolve to reflect new understandings, more relevant information, or healthier perspectives. Because memory is so dynamic, our sense of self is also in a constant state of flux. Our personal identity is built in large part on these memories we have of our past. As our memories shift or change, so too can our sense of who we are, what we've done, and what's important to us. This is why our identities feel so fluid, especially during periods of intense personal growth or trauma. When our memories of past events might be reinterpreted, all perceptions of the world become memories. The famous German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus conducted experiences on memory and forgetting in the late 19th century and discovered what is now known as the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. It shows that within the first hour of learning something new, we forget about 50 to 70% of the information. After 24 hours, we may retain only about 30% of what we originally learned. Over time, if the information is not reviewed or deeply processed, a large portion of it may be forgotten. In everyday life, we forget a significant amount of what we experience. Hashtag memory decay. According to some cognitive scientists, people might forget about 80 to 90% of their waking experiences. This includes things like the specific details of conversations, daily tasks, and background information, the walking gorilla, that we aren't actively paying attention to or encoding into long-term memory. This is the basis of the revision spell. Neville Goddard, a prominent 20th century mystic and teacher, known for his wisdom on the power of the imagination and the law of assumption, that we create our reality through our assumptions and beliefs. One of Goddard's most well-known techniques for personal transformation is the revision technique. The core idea behind the revision technique is that our past experiences, particularly those that cause us emotional distress or that we feel are holding us back, can be revised through the power of our imagination. I've mentioned this spell before and promised that I will create a whole episode in the near future to explore its depths and the importance of the revision spell. Within that future episode, I'll include the documented successes Neville Goddard and other leaders have recorded. In everyday life, we forget a significant amount of what we experience. Memories are reconstructed, not replayed. Every time we recall a memory, we don't access it in its original form. We reconstruct it using bits of information available in the brain at that moment. This process is influenced by our current emotions, beliefs, and external suggestions. When your brain lights a pathway, it can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy. Mirror neurons. Your brain can't tell if you are performing an action or if you are just observing someone else performing the same action. Hashtag mirror neurons. Mirror neurons give us predictive power. Our brains are constantly utilizing predictive coding or predictive processing, predicting what's going to happen next based on past experiences, rather than reacting to everything as it happens. The brain is always a few steps ahead, making remarkably educated guesses about the future based on the patterns your brain has learned. How this works is that the brain creates a mental model of the world and constantly updates it. It takes in the sensory information and compares it to the predictions. If there is a match, we don't even consciously notice it. Everything feels smooth and predictable. If there's a mismatch, something unexpected happens. Your brain pays more attention to adjusting its predictions. Why it's important? This prediction system helps us respond quickly and efficiently, saving mental energy and allowing us to navigate complex environments, making our simulated reality feel so real. It's like autopilot for much of what we do, whether it's catching a ball or recognizing someone's facial expression. The predictive power, hashtag mirror neurons, gift us comes from this ability to simulate others' actions in our own minds before we act. In Joseph Murphy's book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, He elaborates on the role of the subconscious mind in shaping our reality, guiding us towards greater success, happiness, and fulfillment. I read from it in both part 1 and 2, where Murphy teaches that the subconscious mind is incredibly powerful, non-judgmental, and capable of manifesting our desires based on the thoughts and beliefs we impress upon it. He emphasizes the importance of maintaining positive, peaceful thoughts, especially before sleep, to ensure the subconscious mind works constructively on our behalf. Remember, the subconscious mind is impersonal and non-selective. It will accept negative, resentful, or hateful thoughts as well as good thoughts and act accordingly. The subconscious magnifies and multiplies whatever you deposit in it, good or bad. In part 6, I will go through the magic mirror spell. We can and often do deceive ourselves in ways that align with our unconscious desires, fears, or traumas. For example, cognitive biases, like confirmation bias, can be unconscious ways in which we distort reality to fit our existing beliefs. Everyone uses a spell either consciously or subconsciously. It is powerful. Be aware of it. Begin to use it. Rewrite your story with love for the hero, you, and rewrite your story without any regret. If you criticize or wish to change one detail of your life, you've unraveled the whole thing. A famous quote by Alan Watts, a British-born philosopher and interpreter of Eastern philosophy or Zen, Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism for Western audiences. The interconnectedness of life and how everything in the cosmos is part of a whole. Even the smallest change or criticism of one aspect of life could have a ripple effect, influencing the entire flow of existence, the space-time continuum. Ooh. This is good advice from Joseph Campbell in response to Watt's quote. Say yes to it. Say yes to it, to your mistakes, to everything that goes to pieces. When a calamity comes, that is the period of dissolution, out of which revelation will come. But the revelation has to find what was faulty in the position that was dissolved, and what now carries me past that. Out of destruction comes creation.
So if my memories are all malleable, are all perceptions of my sense of self then fragile?
Yes, and can be manipulated with illusions.
Wait, what are illusions? And what do you mean by perception?
Illusions show us fractures in the matrix, fractures within our living simulation. The National Geographic show, Brain Games, is one of my favorites. It is all about this. Brain Games have produced a total of 7 seasons with 80 episodes, so check it out. Now, to answer your question, let's talk about virtual reality, VR. VR, immersive experiences, began in 1957 with the Sensorama, a machine designed to stimulate multiple senses, sight, sound, smell, and touch, through film and mechanical effects. A head-mounted display, HMD, called the Telesphere mask, was the precursor to VR headsets from the Sensorama in the 1960s. These early VR systems researched the development and technical feasibility of creating VR immersive experiences. They focused their research and observations on how people respond to immersive environments, especially in terms of visual overload and motion sickness. Formal psychological and physiological studies began in the 1990s with the VR boom, broadening the research of immersive virtual environment and the effect it has on people's emotions, attention, and behavior. Virtual reality, VR simulators, have been shown to significantly change and alter a sense of self. And this effect has been studied scientifically for over 30 years. The phenomena is largely related to how the brain integrates sensory input and processes body perception in real time. VR can influence a person's self-awareness, body image, and your sense of identity by creating immersive, interactive experiences that provide new types of sensory feedback. A widely cited VR experiment is the rubber hand illusion, where people perceive an artificial rubber hand as their own after it is simultaneously stroked in VR while their own hidden hand is also stroked. The artificial rubber hand is smashed and is shocking and frightening to the victim. This illusion shows how sensory input, visual and tactile, can trick the brain into feeling ownership of a foreign object or body part. The VR version of this experiment has been extended to create similar body ownership illusions where individuals identify with the virtual bodies in the VR environment as if they are their own. VR can alter your perception of your physical body because in VR, you can embody avatars, a digital representation of yourself, and the way your avatar moves, looks, or are represented in the virtual world can shape how you feel about your real world body. Crazy, right? For example, if you embody an avatar that is larger or smaller than your real body, it can affect your self-esteem, body image, and overall body perception. Virtual body shifting exercises have been used to help individuals with negative body image issues or eating disorders. It challenges their perceptions of themselves. You never identify yourself with the shadow cast by your body, or with its reflection, or with the body you see in a dream, or in your imagination. Therefore, you should not identify yourself with this living body either. Shankara, 788 to 820 AD, the Viveka Chudamani, meaning the crest jewel of discrimination, is a Vedic text that encourages us to understand this idea. It teaches that self-inquiry is the way to discover who we truly are. Who we truly are. This process involves turning inward and asking the question, who am I? Just as the teachings of Shankara remind us not to identify with our physical bodies or external experiences. Modern technology like VR-based therapy helps us explore and separate our sense of self from the external stimuli. VR allows us to safely experience stressful situations or environments, offering a controlled way to confront and understand our reactions. This can be a powerful tool in mental health, allowing us to observe and reframe how we respond to stress and anxiety, ultimately helping to reshape our sense of self. Here are some additional key scientific findings on how VR can affect the sense of self. VR alters perception of time and reality. Extended use of VR can distort your sense of self in space and time, especially in longer immersive sessions. Social and identity shifts happen. VR experiments where users interact with others in a virtual environment, such as avatars in a social VR platform, have shown that the way people are represented in VR can influence their social behavior. Studies have found that individuals who take on avatars of different genders, ages, or ethnicities may experience shifts in their social behavior, such as feeling more confident or empathetic, depending on the virtual identity they adopt. Research shows that people experience empathy when using avatars of opposite gender or a different racial background, and a temporary shift in self-perception. Whoa. Out-of-body experiences, OBEs, are a real phenomena, and VR can induce feelings of OBEs. Out-of-body experiences. When players view themselves from a third-person perspective, like watching your avatar move in a game, you can feel your consciousness. You can feel your consciousness. And you can feel your consciousness being separated from your body. Your brain's sense of body ownership and spatial awareness is manipulated. Illusions. Illusions reveal how our sense of self is fragile and highly susceptible to manipulation. Identity is not a static entity, but a dynamic construct influenced by the feedback we receive, our cognitive needs for coherence, and the pressures from the groups and cultures we are a part of. Because of this, it is constantly subject to change, reinterpretation, and manipulation, whether from external forces like the media or authority figures, or from the internal psychological processes that aim to reconcile our experiences with our self-image. In a world filled with information, influences, social pressure, our identity can be shaped or manipulated in ways that we might not fully understand or feel that we are in control of. Our unconscious selves are multifaceted, multidimensional, and can even parallel our waking selves. The unconscious is far from a passive one or a one-dimensional force. It is a multifaceted, dynamic, and deeply interactive aspect of who we are, capable of reflecting, paralleling, and sometimes even contradicting our waking self. It is a reservoir of repressed memories, desires, archetypes, creative impulses, and hidden potential shaping our behaviors, decisions, and perceptions in ways we might not fully understand. Think of Stockholm Syndrome. This is a psychological response that occurs when hostages or victims of kidnapping do develop positive feelings, empathy, or even affection for their captors, sometimes to the point of defending or even siding with them. Or think of the alien hand syndrome, AHS. Alien hand syndrome is a rare neurological disorder in which a person's hand or limb seems to have a mind of its own, moving or performing actions that the person has no conscious control over. The affected hand may reach for objects, strike the person, or perform tasks against their will, creating the sensation that the hand is alien or not under their voluntary control. You are the biggest illusion of all. Indeed, the line between perceiving and hallucinating is not as crisp as we like to think. In a sense, when we look at the world, we are hallucinating all of the time. One could almost regard perception as the act of choosing the one hallucination that best fits the incoming data, which is often fragmentary and fleeting. Both hallucinations and real perceptions emerge from the same set of processes. The crucial difference is that when we are perceiving, the stability of external objects and events helps anchor us. When we hallucinate, as when we dream or float in a sensory deprivation tank, objects and events wander off in any direction. V.S. Ramachandran, The Telltale Brain, Unlocking the Mystery of Human Nature. The distinction between perceiving and hallucinating can often blur, especially when we consider how the brain processes sensory input. Much like the way we navigate the world visually, our auditory system is constantly shaping and refining what we hear, influenced by both our biology and our experiences. Just as we selectively focus on certain visual cues, we also selectively tune into specific sounds. This idea is backed by neuroscience and psychology. Our brains are designed to filter out irrelevant sounds and prioritize those that align with our current needs or emotional states. This is evident, especially in everyday situations, like a soccer coach directing their team in a match. The coach's voice cuts through the noise of the crowd and becomes the focus of the attention for the players, primed by the brain to tune in to important information. This phenomena is the result of selective attention, expectation, and neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and change over time. Science tells us that our perception of sound isn't passive. It's shaped by our intentions. Whether it's the whistle of a referee, the cheers of the crowd, a teammate's shout, the brain's focus on certain frequencies is influenced by both conscious goals and the subconscious processes. Your instinct, allowing us to experience sound in a deeply personalized way. Just as we selectively tune into sounds, our perception of color and detail is equally shaped by the brain's focus and filtering systems. What we experience visually isn't a complete, accurate picture of the world. Instead, it's a clever construction, an illusion created by the brain. The way we perceive color, for instance, is the result of the brain processing light wavelengths and interpreting them into a fluid, continuous color experience. This is how the brain codes what we see, but it doesn't capture the full picture. In fact, what we truly see is only a tiny fraction, about 1/1000th of our entire field of vision. Our eyes only take in small, detailed snippets of the world around us, while the brain fills in the gaps to create a seamless visual experience. Your brain isn't focused on accuracy. It's focused on survival. It's focused on survival. The detail we see, which is only about 0.1% of the world around us, is used to make assumptions and shortcuts, helping us quickly interpret our surroundings. This brain model of reality isn't concerned with providing a true representation of the world. Instead, it's designed to help us navigate and respond to immediate needs, essentially blinding us to the vast majority of what's happening around us. In short, we perceive only a tiny slice of the world, and what we see is shaped by the brain's survival-driven shortcuts. We have another caller. Hi.
Hey Harmony, what about subliminal messages? Am I being primed?
Okay. Subliminal messages are embedded in media such as audio recordings, images, advertisements, or videos. These messages can be in the form of visual cues, such as a brief flash of text on the screen, auditory cues, such as whispers or sound played beneath the threshold of conscious hearing, or even in the form of repeated suggestions that are barely noticeable. Subliminal messages are stimuli that are presented below the threshold of conscious awareness, meaning we cannot perceive them directly with our conscious mind, but they still influence us on a subconscious level. Yes, you are being primed. Subliminal messages prime you. Subliminal messages prime you for certain behaviors, thoughts, or emotional states. Yes, you are being primed. Priming is a psychological trick where exposure to certain stimulus influences how we respond to something else afterward. If you see words related to kindness, like help or warmth, before making a decision about how to treat others, you are more likely to act kindly, even though you don't consciously know these words affected you. They've primed your mind to choose a kind action. Priming works by activating certain associations in the brain, and these activated ideas can help guide our judgments or behaviors unconsciously. It plays a role in many areas of our life, from marketing and advertising to social interactions. Subliminals have been used in marketing to influence what we think about products, services, brands, and our social political leaders, the people in power, to influence your choices without you realizing. The subliminal advertiser does not want to change your behavior. He wants to manipulate your attitudes so that when you are confronted with the decision to purchase a product, the behavior will change of its own accord. Wilson Bryan Key's book, Subliminal Seduction, 1973. This idea connects to ongoing research in sleep studies, which suggests that your preferences can be subtly altered while you sleep through subliminal priming. Studies show that during sleep, your brain is still busy with memory consolidation, emotional reprocessing, and implicit learning. These processes can shape your future choices. Your future choices, preferences, and decisions. This is where spell number 4, visualization, comes in. Dream is destiny. Go to sleep focusing on what you want. Go to sleep focusing on what you want. As Stephen Richard wisely puts it, never allow your mind to wander untamed like a wild animal that exists on the basis of survival of the fittest. Tame your mind with consistent focus on your goals and desires. Neville Goddard teaches, you must sleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is the secret. Sleep, feeling that you are already the person you desire to be, and your outer world will reflect it. Imagination creates reality. Feeling is the secret. Ernest Holmes teaches, you are the thinker who is thinking the thought that is creating the conditions of your life. When you go to bed, drop all your worries and visualize what you want as already being fulfilled. The science of the mind. Ralph Waldo Trine, think of the end you desire as you go to sleep and let your thought settle in that place. Then rest assured the universe will bring it to you, for it cannot be otherwise. In tune with the infinite. These teachings suggest that by focusing on the fulfillment of your desires, especially before you go to sleep, where you connect with the superconscious, you align your inner world with your goals, allowing them to manifest in the outer world. Next caller, please.
Hey H-Bomb, is hypnosis real or is it just a phenomenon?
Hypnosis can be viewed as a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious mind, allowing the individual to bypass the critical conscious mind, access and reframe unconscious material, and or rewire or reprogram the unconscious mind by creating new patterns or associations. During hypnosis, the conscious mind is still aware of the process, but it is less dominant in terms of filtering and controlling information. Consciousness comes in degrees, and this fact is explored in multiple fields of psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy. Consciousness isn't a binary state where you're either conscious or you're not. Rather, it exists on a spectrum or continuum with varying levels of awareness, attention, and self-reflection. And this, I believe, that the free, exploring mind of the individual human is the most valuable thing in the world. And this I would fight for. The freedom of the mind to take any direction it wishes undirected. And this I must fight against any idea, religion, or government which limits or destroys the individual. This is what I am, and this is what I am about. John Steinbeck. We have a caller. Hi.
What are dreams? What is waking thought?
Dreams are destiny. Dreams and waking thought are both powerful cognitive processes that can influence how you question, reflect on, and understand your own thoughts. They operate differently, but both provide unique opportunities for self-reflection, problem-solving, and understanding, helping us explore, challenge, and even question our beliefs, assumptions, and emotions. During a dream, the brain simulates reality, creating scenarios that feel real to the dreamer. The dreamer can experience emotions, sensations, and thoughts that feel as though they are happening in the real world. While the brain might not always know it's dreaming, it generally accepts the dream state as real while you're in it. Fantasy involves conscious daydreaming or imaginative thought. This is a state of mental play where the mind constructs scenarios, stories, or possible futures, often based on desires, fears, or creativity. When you're in a fantasy world, your brain can activate the same neural networks that are involved in real perception, especially when you're deeply absorbed. This can make the fantasy feel vivid and real. In contrast to dreams and fantasy, reality is grounded in objective sensory input, the 5 husbands that is shared and is shaped by external validation. If something doesn't match what you know to be true, like walking into a room and seeing an impossible event unfold, your brain will register a cognitive dissonance or confusion, a mismatch between expectations and actual experience. This often leads to critical thinking and reality checking. Yet, what we perceive as reality may simply be a simulation, with our experiences acting as programmed responses to the world around us. The confusion you feel between reality and fantasy and dreams are a reminder that the code of your reality can be reshaped at will. Next caller, thanks.
Harmony. Now that I know that 99% of my sensory input is an elaborate fabrication, how do I know what is real? You said I am the biggest illusion of all. How can I use this knowledge to transform my reality?
Your brain cannot differentiate between reality, fantasy, visualization, dreaming, or virtual reality. It processes all stimuli, both consciously and subconsciously, through the same neural pathways in each of these states. The same neural pathway fires for reality, fantasy, visualization, dreaming, or virtual reality. I dream my painting. I paint my dream. I dream my painting. I paint my dream. Van Gogh. Unlock your dream world. The universal key. As above, so below. Look to dreams for creativity. Fall asleep with a clear intention. Make yourself the hero, playing a romantic life where all of your dreams come true. Make a list. Use the best self questionnaire. Envision yourself discovering something amazing. You are already an amazing product of evolution. Prime yourself. Prime yourself. Intentionally input your desires into your conscious and subconscious minds. You are already an amazing product of evolution. Prime yourself so that when you are confronted with a decision, your behavior changes of its own accord to align with your highest good. Intentionally input your desires into your conscious and subconscious minds. Open your mind. You never know what you will find. Life itself can be about revealing something that already exists within. I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. Michelangelo. A powerful metaphor. Like the marble, we each have something beautiful or valuable within us that is already there. Sometimes it just takes time, patience, and effort to reveal it.
Yo, H-Bomb. So who is in control?
So, who is in control? Einstein, the greatest scientist in human history, teaches the idea that absolute free will is somewhat of an illusion. Human behavior being influenced by forces beyond our control, including our environment, genetics, and the laws of physics. Einstein said, I am convinced that he, God, does not play dice with the universe. Einstein is implying that the universe operates by deterministic laws, and human actions are influenced by those forces. Einstein teaches that free will exists, but it is not absolute. Free will is shaped by the forces and conditions within which we operate. Carl Jung believed in both the unconscious forces that shape our behavior and the power of our conscious mind. Self-awareness and individuation. While many aspects of our lives are influenced by unconscious drives, we still have the power to make conscious decisions that lead to personal transformation. True freedom comes from understanding and integrating the unconscious to the conscious mind. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates teaches us that true freedom lies in knowledge and self-awareness. We can make wiser choices by examining our lives and understanding ourselves. While circumstances may influence us, we have the power to choose how we respond to them through reason and self-discipline. The existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre strongly argued for the concept of radical freedom. Humans are condemned to be free, meaning we are always responsible for our choices and actions, regardless of the circumstances. There is no external force that dictates our lives. We are the architects of our own existence. Recognize both the influence of external factors on your life and the power of conscious choice in shaping your life. Dream literally and clearly. Dream literally and clearly. You are the rightful knight and ruler of your destiny. And beware, gentle knight, there is no greater monster than reason. Pink Floyd's Eclipse from the Dark Side of the Moon is today's theme song. Eclipse dives deep into perception, reality, and the fine line between genius and madness. And further decode your simulation by checking out these tracks too. He Lives in You by Lebo M. And Energy Mantra remix by Michael 7. Finally, I want to talk about Sheila Murray Bethel, an inspiration for humanity. Sheila Murray Bethel has played a big role in changing the way people learn and think about leadership skills, especially by encouraging self-awareness, confidence, and strategic thinking. By excelling in corporate, governmental, and nonprofit sectors, Bethel has challenged stereotypes and proven that one another's perspectives and leadership styles are invaluable in all areas of life. She's authored books and given talks worldwide, emphasizing self-awareness, courage, and strategic vision. Spell number 4, visualization. Bethel's teachings help individuals, regardless of gender, find purpose and direction. Sheila Murray Bethel has advised world leaders, Fortune 500 companies, and communities, making leadership knowledge accessible to all, fostering a culture of growth, empowerment, and inclusivity. Her work continues to inspire aspiring leaders and changemakers globally to embrace their unique voice, pursue their goals fearlessly, and create meaningful impact. Positive change. Sheila Murray Bethel, an advocate for self-discovery and courage. Her famous quote, "A powerful call for self-awareness and intentionality. One of the most courageous things you can do is to identify yourself, know who you are, what you believe in, and where you want to go."